Hey, good day, and welcome to the exciting world of reading. I hope that last night you had a chance to sit down and do a little bit of reading in a good book. I know I did. So it's always important to read whatever you can, be it books, magazines, or newspapers. We're going to introduce a different reading strategy today, and this reading strategy is called Before, During, and After. It's a simple reading strategy that you can use in all of your classes. In this one, there's 3 steps to the reading process. You're going to do something before you actually start reading the text. The second thing is there are several things that you're going to do while you are reading the text that will help you comprehend, remember, and learn that information. And then there's some final things that we'll do at the end of the text, again, to help you learn the information and make sure you understand what it is that you have read. So, with before reading, the first thing you want to do is set a purpose for reading. So, you got to have some goal in mind. Why am I reading this? So, that's what setting a purpose for reading is. The second thing you want to do after you've set that goal, and usually your goal is to understand it or comprehend it, is that you're going to skim through the text. We call this previewing. You're going to look at things like pictures, topic sentences, titles, maybe some boldface vocabulary word to get an idea and a sense of what that text is all about. And then the third thing that you need to do is before you actually start reading, you want to select a reading strategy. So reading strategies, you've probably learned a little bit about them in this class. They're usually pretty easy to use, quick to learn. They're go by names like multipass or SQ3R or QAR, or one of the best and most effective reading strategies of all time is simply to reread a text for a second or a third time. A lot of really good readers in school are good readers because they're willing to do the rereading. That's one of their favorite strategies. They will reread a text. So let's review before we move on to the next part of this reading strategy. Before you actually sit down to read, you're going to do 3 things. You're going to set a purpose for the reading, you're going to preview the text, and then you're going to pick some reading strategy to use while you examine the text. All right, then the during reading, this is the second thing. The first thing that you're going to do is read with a purpose. What are you going to know after you have read that text? Some of the things that fall under this category, or the teacher might want you to comprehend or understand what the text is about. Your purpose might be to learn specific vocabulary words. If it's a story, you might need to know about the character. Or another thing, purpose for reading is that you're going to have to retell this story to somebody. Then it's very important to self-monitor while you read. And as we read, everybody loses focus from time to time. What good readers learn how to do is realize when they've lost focus, and they have a little voice that kind of goes off in their head and says, "Hey, I don't understand this." And when you don't understand something, that's the time to stop and go back and find the point where you were understanding and start reading from there. So self-monitoring is very important, and it's something that good readers do. Poor readers hardly ever self-monitor. Their goal seems to be just to get to the end of that text and to say that they've read the 4 pages or the 3 pages, and they don't really connect that. When I get to the end of this, I need to know it. And then the last thing that you do during the reading is try to connect that text up to you and your experiences. So think about, is this like a movie I've seen, or is this like a TV show I've seen? Is this like another book that I've seen? Do I know a character like the character I'm reading about? Are they like my brother? Are they like my sister? So you're making these personal connections to the text. Very important for understanding when you can make the personal connections to the text. So before we move on, let me just review one last time. When you're actually sitting down and you're reading that information, you're going to first of all have a purpose, a reason for why you're reading it. You're going to pay close attention to the fact that, am I understanding this as I read it? And that's called self-monitoring. And then the last thing you want to do is connect any personal experiences that you have to the text. This will help you remember and comprehend what the text is about. So let's move on to the last part, which is the after reading. And The things that you do after reading a text. First it's just important to pause and reflect. You can think over in your mind what it is that you've just read and what the characters were doing and what the plot is, or if it's something from a science book, what the concept was. It's very important. It helps kids a lot if they can talk about it. So if they can go to a friend and talk about their science book and what they read in the science book, or if they can go to a parent and talk about what they've read in the short story that they're working on, these help students comprehend that information. Next, you want to kind of give yourself a self-test, which is called evaluate. And that can be as simple as asking that question, did you understand it? Are there parts that confuse you? Okay? If you understand most of it, fine, that's great. That's what we want. But if you come to the point where you're saying to yourself, I do not get this, then you need to go back and do something else. And like I said before, one of the important strategies is to reread. Some other things that you can do are to ask an expert. So you can go to your teacher and say, I'm kind of confused about this part. Could you explain it to me? Your friends are really a good source of information too. You can ask them questions about the text. And always, after reading, you usually end up producing some kind of a product. If it's a class, typically you're going to get a worksheet from the teacher or some kind of graphic organizer that you're going to need to complete. Really good students learn how to take notes, and they'll often write down some information about the text as they complete it. There is a huge connection between reading and writing. If you're a good reader, you're often a good writer. If you're a good writer, it's because you're a good reader. So you want to connect the two because it's hard to separate reading and writing. So after reading, I strongly suggest that you take notes. And if you are on a reading device like an iPad or a Kindle or the Nook, boy, you got that built in where you can almost automatically produce a product with your notes. So after reading, it's important to think about what you've read. And as I said, for students, it's very important because you're such social creatures to talk about it with somebody or post things up on websites that you use. You have to self-test yourself. Did you understand that text? And then there's always parts where we've lost focus and don't quite comprehend everything. So in those parts, it's important to go back and do a little bit of rereading. And then, like I said, take the notes, do something that will help you remember what it is you have read. You can watch this video as many times as you need to get an understanding or a better understanding of how you use the before, during, and after reading strategy.